Right, so depending on who you are, you might have pretty bad reactions or you might have pretty good reactions. And what we need to know and what we're going to do in this video is learn, well, how do you respond to things, right? So before you can respond to anything, you first got to know it's there. And you've got cells in your body that are called receptor cells, and that's their job. There's loads of different ones. So you might have sound receptors in your ears, light receptors to help you see in your eye, taste receptors on your tongue, smell receptors in your nose, and heat receptors or touch receptors all over your body, right? All over your skin. So that's how you might tell if there's something to react to. But then you have to actually produce an effect. And that might be your muscle moving you, or it might be a gland releasing a hormone like adrenaline. And we'll do more on glands later, so don't worry for now. But those two things together are called effectors. So we know it starts with receptors, say in your eye, and it finishes with effectors, say in your bicep. But how does the message get from your eye to your bicep? Right, so what's going on in that middle bit? And that's where something called neurons come in. So neurons, they're cells, they're found all over your body, and they basically pass the message around, and we call that message an electrical impulse. So you can think of it as message, but write down in an exam, electrical impulse. There are three types of neuron. The first one's called a sensory neuron, and like the name suggests, it helps you sense. So it might be connected, that's the sensory neuron there, to your receptors. So there'll be a sensory neuron from the touch receptor in your skin or the light receptor in your eye, for example. And it leads to a type of neuron called a relay neuron. So a relay, like in a race, is about passing the message from one on to the other. So the relay neuron, which is that branchy looking one there, you'll find them in the central nervous system, the CNS. And the central nervous system is either your brain or your spine, so it's both of those things. If the action that you're doing is something you're thinking about, then the relay neuron will be in a conscious part of your brain. But if the action's something you don't have to think about, like when you touch something hot and you just move, or you tread on some Lego and lift your leg up, then the relay neuron's either in an unconscious part of your brain or it's in your spine, which is why you don't think about it. So that's what we've got so far. We had a receptor, a sensory neuron, a relay neuron, and the relay neuron is connected to this last neuron called a motor neuron. And motor neurons help you move, right? Just how maybe they help motors in a car make a car move, which might not be true. I don't know anything about cars, but it sounds good. So the electrical impulse is passed on to the motor neuron, and that motor neuron is either connected to a muscle or to a gland. And those effectors, remember, muscles or glands, will make you respond. So there's a little summary: receptor to sensory neuron, relay neuron, motor neuron, and then effectors. Now, okay, I'm not sure this even makes sense, but I spent so long Googling sausages that I can't waste it. So the way we've been talking about it might suggest the neurons are just all connected in one big tube. But that's not really true, because between each little neuron, so between the sensory and the relay and between the relay and the motor, there's a tiny little microscopic gap called a synapse. So when the electrical impulse gets to the synapse, it releases some chemicals, and those chemicals diffuse across and they start the impulse at the next one. Right, so they're not all joined together. It's actually a little bit more like this, where there's a tiny little gap between each one, and those gaps are the synapse. So here's a little summary just to finish it off. Check you know the order. It's a really common question, just to put them in order or to fill in the gaps. Good luck.